Hey everyone, this is Chris, and for this week's episode, we are again lifting the audio from a video we did on our YouTube channel not too long ago, where we are looking at ranking the Monsterverse films, at least up until this point. Um, yeah, just wanted to get that out there for this week. We also might be potentially going on a short hiatus soon. I'm not sure. I just wanted to share that in case I do make that decision, just because things are starting to pick up with work a fair bit, which is great. But then also on that side, things are also picking up on the anxiety front and mental health front in ungood ways. So I might need to take a brief step back from the show. But we'll see how that goes. That could just be doing one episode a month again for a while, or just taking a brief break and then coming back to the two episodes a month kind of thing. Or just looking at where we might post whenever we post in the month. Um, it's just this month is going to be very, very busy with work. And then Jill and I have had the wonderful opportunity to get away for our anniversary in late October for a week. So it might just be, hey, it might be taking a break for the month of October and coming back in November. There'll be a comment on our socials if that ends up being the case. And it's not a going away; it's just taking a brief break kind of thing. So we might end up doing that. I'll let you guys know. But in the meantime, wanted to get this out, and I hope you enjoy this episode where we rank the 4 live-action Monsterverse films. Hope you enjoy and take care. Hey everyone, this is Chris, and you're watching One Cross Video, aka 2099 OCR video, aka something else. I might change up the title. Three things out. So before we dive in, just a couple housekeeping items. Some people have asked, "Hey Chris, whatever happened to the shorts? What happened to the OCR shorts? Isn't this it?" No, and I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the shorts. There's been some stuff, and I eventually might talk about it, but I'll figure that out when I get there. But through a lot of encouragement from my incredible wife, Jill, shout out to Jill the Amazing. She's been encouraging me to get out of my head, get out of my shell a bit. And with the mental health stuff that I've been having going on, and hey, if you're a first time viewer or listener, I have depression, anxiety, and ADHD, and it's a fun mix where things that used to bring me joy and energy don't always. Anyways, so this is going to be the start of that. I'm going to try to do more videos. I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to switch up the platforms that they're on. If I'm going to switch them over from, I was doing the shorts on Instagram. I'd also post them on YouTube. I might switch it up to more so YouTube, but we'll figure that out as we go. The other thing I wanted to shout out is in the little intro video there, you would have noticed a lo-fi remix of the Godzilla theme that I particularly want to shout out the creator, Amnimotus. I'm so sorry. Amnimotus Music. I'm gonna link to their profile, but it's a dope remix, and it felt appropriate. So it ties into what we're doing today, and today we are ranking the Monsterverse. I have been on a Godzilla kick recently, and rankings are fun. At some point, I might try to rank the Toho canon, but that sucker is long, and that's also daunting because of how many years and eras, and how do you decide? And then the huge highs and the low lows. The Monsterverse has, at least to me, been much more consistent. And with there only being so far only 4 films, it makes it easier. The other thing I'm going to say is I'm not looking at this as worst to best, just because, well, frankly, um, I enjoy all these movies, all four, and I don't think there's a bad film in the bunch. Now, of course, there's ones that I enjoy more than others. There's ones where I think the filmmaking craft in it was executed better than others within it. But I'm hesitant to call any of these the worst. Um, so this is just my personal preference and my personal rankings. It's easy because it's a top. There's only four, so hey, what's number four and what's number one? None of that's a bad spot. So I'm gonna jump right in. And at the start of the Monsterverse, I didn't think this would be the case. But coming in at number four, I almost held three, but four is 2014's Godzilla, the Garrett Edwards Godzilla. Now, I like this flick. It's not that it's a bad movie. I remember at the time, not like anybody was beating up on the movie, like, oh, it's bad, but the movie was marketed um, very much as a spiritual remake, successor, whatever you want to call it, of the 1954 original Gojira. Um, and it was leaning into that serious side. It was leaning into a bit of that dark side, especially with how heavily featured Bryan Cranston, who was acting his butt off um, in his role, um, but he was featured heavily in the marketing. And there was a lot of stuff that we didn't know about the Mutos. We didn't. There was a lot we didn't see, and 2014 ended up being more so of a mid to late Showa era film than the original. And Cranston was out after the first act. He was in it, I think, for about the first hour. Um, and that threw people for a loop. And also, we didn't see much of Godzilla, but they don't hold that against the movie. The little we saw was dope, and when we finally, because we get little flashes here, little flashes there, little teases. So then when we got to the end of the movie into the fight with the Mutos, it was dope. It was earned. In some ways, it reminded me of Jaws, where we get the scant glimpses until we got him showing up out of the water. And what also worked with this is within those scant glimpses, it established the scale of Godzilla in this in comparison to the humans, in comparison to the buildings. Like, you are sold on the size, and his size does not change. He's just impressively large. Um, so I really dig this movie. There's things of course, after seeing it as it is, I'd enjoy another cut where we got more of the action and less intercutting with the human stuff. But the human stuff was necessary. Could it have been better? Sure. Was it terrible? No. We've seen worse human stuff in the '98 flick from TriStar. We've seen worse human stuff throughout the Toho canon. Um, it was what it was, the human stuff, but it was enjoyable. The film has a solid cast, although later films are casted better. No offense to this one, but one coming up, uh, two movies coming up, but one in particular is so stellarly cast that it makes the not great human material, at least to me, more palatable and more enjoyable. And it's not that I don't enjoy what's here; it's just that it's all right, and the stuff in the other ones I found was done better. Tonally, it's the most serious of the four, but it still connects. It still connects and connects well. And being seeing this in theaters that first time, I still remember utterly fangirling like when Godzilla does the atomic breath and it charges up. That was dope. Um, I enjoy this flick. It was a great starting block, a stepping stone, whatever you want to call it. It was a great springboard, and it's a very, very enjoyable movie in its own right. And I know that there's in the Godzilla fandom, people are like, "How dare you put this in the fourth place of the monster films?" But it's personal opinion, and it's not that I think it's weak. It's just that I enjoy some of the others more. I go to watch them more. Number three is the most recent entry, and that's Godzilla versus Kong. I enjoy this a lot. It is a lot of fun, especially the fight between Godzilla and Kong. The throwdowns in it are fantastic. The technological jumps that we've made since King of the Monsters, they could have explained that a little bit more. On one hand, I'm fine with it because it's a it's Godzilla, and I can unpack that a little bit for the uninitiated, or others who are like, no, but it needs to be serious. Like Godzilla is serious, but also easily goes to the silly. The Showa era, we got aliens. In the Heisei area, we got aliens, time travel, and psychic people. Um, I'm fine with this showing up. It's partially part of the parcel. Godzilla lends itself to this fantastical sci-fi element. Um, so it didn't really bother me as much. But it was a bigger leap than the leap we got from 2014 to King of the Monsters. Um, to me, it was a bigger technological leap from King of the Monsters to Godzilla versus Kong. Um, the human characters are all right. It's got a good cast, um, but you're there for Godzilla versus Kong. Mecha Godzilla is a little bit of a misfire. I don't. I've seen people who love it. I've seen people who hate it. I don't hate it. I'm all right with it. It could have been done better, um, but it was still okay. Like it's not a bad movie. It's a fun romp, and it left me excited for more MonsterVerse films. Um, but there were other movies that I found did the fun and the human character stuff a little bit better. That's not to diminish this. It was a lot of fun for a number of people. It is their number one, and I get why. It's just there's other aspects to other movies coming up that I enjoyed a little bit more. Godzilla got top billing, but this was a Kong movie with like guest starring Godzilla. The balance wasn't as good necessarily. But I overall thoroughly enjoyed what's there. It's a good flick. It's a fun flick to toss on. Um, but there's another two that I think did things a little bit better. So coming into number two is what is I'd say general audiences number one, um, and that would be Kong Skull Island. Skull Island is dope. It's such a good movie. It's such a fun time. And it's also it and King of the Monsters, I think are some of the best casted movies. Not only in the Monsterverse, but in recent memory. Because yes, even though Tom Hiddleston's character and Brie Larson's character don't get a good amount of development, both actors bring a charm and a likability to the roles that you're like, okay, sure, your character might be thin, but you're having fun, and that's making me have fun as a viewer. And then you've got Sam Jackson actually acting his butt off, not just playing the Sam Jackson character, although we do get a bit of that. John Goodman, friggin' I so many people who you're like, I recognize that guy. Like I can't remember his name, but the guy who played Eazy-E in the Straight Outta Compton movie, he's in it and he does good. And of course, the dude who plays Marlowe, and I'm struggling to remember his name, even though it was on the tip of my tongue. So give me 1 second. I'm so sorry about this. Marlowe. Do. There we go. John C. Riley. His name was on the tip of my tongue, and then of course it slipped, and then you freeze. No, and John C. Riley honestly might be the most like he makes his character the most lovable character, and I think the one that people gravitate to the most out of any of the human characters in the Monsterverse. And that's a testament to him as an actor. Like John C. Riley, I wasn't aware how much range he had. And over the past couple of years, I've slowly become aware of it. But he took what could easily be a one note comedic character, but he made it his own. He made you care about it his character so much that they reshot stuff. So we got that mid credit scene or over the credits, it's him being reunited with his family, and everybody loved that. And that's a testament to what he brought to the role. His character and a number of the other characters and their interchanges are awesome. What I also really dig about Skull Island is, to me, it is the most original King Kong movie since the original. Because for better or for worse, every other Kong movie has been chasing the original. And anytime we've gone to Skull Island, when we went back in the 70s, even though why they were going was different. And then when we went back in 2005 with Jackson, and it was like, nope, we're going to shoot a movie, like they did in 33. It's hey, we're on this island, and there's the dinosaurs, and there's the T-Rex fight, and there's the jaw ripping, and the beauty killed the beast, and all that. Kong Skull Island got to be its own thing. Like you at most of dinosaurs, you see a, a triceratops skull, and that's it. Um, you get a nice mix of regular animals, then these huge, freaky animals, like this, the land that time forgot, but in the 70s. And its aesthetic, its 70s Vietnam era aesthetic was dope. It was a lot of fun. Um, there's stuff I wish that they from the trailer. I still remember the trailer had that shot where out of nowhere Kong's jumping off the side of the mountain to punch the skull crawler in the face. I wish that didn't get included in the trailer because that was such a dope shot that would have been such a nice surprise. And even the director recognizes that there's flaws. Like, and I'm not saying any of these are perfect movies, but this one was a lot of fun. Um, and it requires the least amount of work um, to, I think, the casual audience. Because Godzilla is much more niche, especially in the West, than Kong is. Even though Godzilla's acceptance in wider audiences has only grown over the past couple of years, like Kong always had that from 33 onwards. So it wasn't like, hey, we're selling this monster as serious now, and we gotta overcome stuff from bad impressions from a 98 flick, and then also not treating it seriously and only getting ones from the late 70s um, and not really giving anything their due and bad dubs. Um, Godzilla had a bit of a hurdle to get over. Kong didn't. Um, so you really just get to dive in and jump in with it, and it's so solid. It's so much fun. Coming in at number one, to me, might be the controversial one, and I get it, but heck, this is my list. And also, this is the one as a kaiju fanboy, this is the one I get the most enjoyment out of. Even though would I say is a better film than Skull Island? Not necessarily, not really. Do the human characters connect with me as much? No. But am I geeking out the entire time I'm watching it? 1000%. So coming in at number one is my favorite of the Monsterverse. It's Godzilla King of the Monsters. I wish this had been better received, but it does have a bit of an uphill battle. Because now we're not only doubling down on Godzilla, we're also bringing in three other iconic Toho characters two of which who've had their own films, and one had their own side franchise. Um, and we're having to take those and sell them again to a wider audience, while also including the biggest bad of Godzilla. No offense to Destroya, but I'd say Ghidorah is the big bad. We're getting in Ghidorah. This, to me, is should be a longtime Godzilla fan's not wet dream, but you get what I'm going for. Um, never, never did I think I'd ever see Mothra, Rodan, or King Ghidorah on the big screen. And those are the things that make me love this movie. The fact that these monsters that I had been watching in uh, like on TV on the space station, channel 50, when they do Godzilla marathons on some Saturdays, um, and you'd be peripherally aware. And eventually, in the early 2000s, when some of the Heisei flicks were finally getting DVD distribution, you could get it from Blockbuster. Like, these are characters that I had watched in poorly dubbed, awfully dubbed uh, North American releases, and then you're eventually able to get access to the Japanese originals. Um, but finally seeing them with a big budget, that was awesome. And it's still awesome. It, like, whenever I throw the movie on, I've got a smile on my face the entire time. Is it highbrow? No. Is it schlock? Absolutely not. It's fun monster chaos. It also shows beauty in destruction, which is a difficult line to toe. The destruction isn't mean spirited. You feel it, but it's also not like destruction, for lack of another term, destruction porn. Like, just, oh, let's blow everything up. Let's be the final hour of friggin' Man of Steel for no reason. Um, the cast is really solid. Yes, some people could have been given more to do. And yeah, sure, there could be some leaps of logic. Watching a movie where Ghidorah is acknowledged as an alien, and I'm watching a movie with an alien three-headed dragon. Friggin', I don't care that someone's motivation is like, we'll unleash these monsters on the world to kind of reset it. Sure, works for me. I'm watching a movie with a giant radioactive monster that that shoots an atomic beam out of its mouth, while also watching a movie featuring its nemesis that's a giant three-headed dragon that's fallen from space as an invasive species. I think this movie delivers on so many promises. It was awesome to see these characters in a modern budget, because even though they started looking better in the Heisei era than they did in the Showa, um, Ghidorah has never looked better. And also, I'd say this is the movie that absolutely nailed King Ghidorah on his premise. Because when he first shows up as Monster Zero, um, we're told about like the destructive force and all that. But Ghidorah's also been kind of uh, frequently brought in and reintroduced as being mind controlled by aliens. This is the destructive force of nature that we were told Ghidorah it was. We're seeing it, and he's doing it of his own malicious volition. Um, I love it. They gave each head the personality. The scale of him was beyond epic. Those shots you get to see where he's showing up, like where he first shows up and friggin' Cube's son is in the movie and drops the one F bomb, and it works. Um, but then whenever it's Ghidorah showing up either by himself or when Godzilla faces off with him in the Antarctic, I've seen people complain like, oh, but there's too much snow and stuff. I don't care. Like, to me, I can see it crystal clear. And it's again something I never thought I'd see. Something as a kid, from when I was young till that time, that I wanted to see but never thought I would. it's such a fun movie that I don't care that it's not as serious as it could be. And some decisions you're like, well, that's kind of dumb, but I'm having so much fun and it brings such a smile to my face that I'm like, no, I'm in. That's the one I watch the most um, because so many things are nailed and there's some of the best versions of these characters and they've brought in these characters to a wider audience. They've made people more interested in the Toho canon, where I'm like, friggin' A, this is it. So there we go. So I get numbers four, coming in at number four, we got the 2014 Godzilla. Number three is Godzilla versus Kong. Number two is Kong Skull Island, and my number one is King of the Monsters. Don't at me. I get it. I know it's not everybody's, and some people were disappointed that it wasn't in the same tone that the 2014 one was, but I love so much of what's in there, flaws and all, that I'm like, nah, I'm here for it, man. This is friggin' awesome. Ghidorah being an alien, getting called Monster Zero, friggin' Mothra, the larva form and the moth form looking dope, Rodon showing up looking dope. It's a, I'm here for it. It's awesome. Like, yeah, sure, the oxygen destroyer was a nice nod. It could have been done better. Not gonna deny that, but I was here for it. It was a lot of fun. And there's room for that in Godzilla. I'd argue that more of the franchise is the fun than the serious stuff. But when the serious stuff hits and it's done well, it's beyond dope. It's the dopest part of the franchise. But a lot of the Godzilla franchise has been silly monster fun. And King of the Monsters has that in spades and arguably the best of the franchise. All right. Hope you enjoyed today's video. I didn't think I'd go on for 24 minutes, but here we are. Yeah, we'll be back with another video. Hope you enjoyed this and take care, my friends. Peace. God bless.